So it is my huge pleasure to introduce my colleagues Lynette Brock and Hannah Kiani, who will share with us their work on the Global Sustainable Citizenship Award, which is awarded by Omep Uk, a really well-established world organization for early childhood educators. And it is wonderful that these two Montessorians have been able to offer their services to this worldwide organization. Lynette as one of the creators of the scheme, and Hannah as one of the teachers who have tried to deliver the scheme and document it through children's voices and also through reflections by the practitioners. I hope you will be inspired to make this available to the children in your settings. So over to Lynette and Hannah.
Thank you so much, Barbara. We'll just go to the presentation. First of all, a blue screen will come up. So if you could just bear with me for a moment, and then you will see the screen that you need to see. And I hope now you can see a presentation. That's the technical worries over. Thank you so much, Barbara. So we're delighted to be able to join you here at the Montessori Europe Conference today. Thank you so much for inviting us. As Barbara said, I'm Director of Scheme of Play Community Interest Company and the co-author of Omep Uk Education for Sustainable Citizenship Award. And I've been invited here today to discuss what are commonly called the 3 pillars of sustainability and provide an introduction to the Omep Uk Sustainable Citizenship Award.
And I'm Hannah Kiani. Thank you for the introduction, Barbara. And I work at a small Montessori school in London called Unity Montessori. And I've also been as a Montessori trainer as well as a current practitioner. So at Unity, our ethos is defined in this quote from Montessori, who said, "All things are part of the universe and are connected with each other to form one whole unity." This idea of connection and interdependence is part of our day-to-day teaching. We want children to feel like they're really connected to their environment, both locally and globally. And because of this, we feel we should all work together to look after the resources that we have. And we've heard again this morning about these ideas of a whole school commitment and a holistic approach to the sustainability goals. And with that in mind, the Omep Uk Education for Sustainable Citizenship Award seemed to us to be the perfect fit as a way of being able to do this. It enabled us to link together with parents, local community, and it was really helpful for us as teachers as well. Through the award, the children were able to see firsthand how we're connected to each other and to our local environment and to our planet. So we're really grateful to John and Lynette for promoting the award to us. John and Lynette produce a self-audit tool, and that's what we used. We used it as a way of reflecting on our environment and on our practice. And we made a series, as the Norwegians were saying, of very small changes to our planning and resources, and were amazed at the impact, not only in terms of children's literacy and numeracy, but more importantly, their creative projects, their collaborative play, their understanding, and the way that this also grew a sense of community within the school. I'm going to hand over to Lynette at this point to tell you some more about the sustainability goals and some of the aims and principles of the Omep Uk Award for Sustainable Citizenship.
Thanks ever so much, Hannah. Many of you in Europe will be familiar with Omep. It's actually more well known in Europe than it is actually in the UK. It is the World Organization for Early Childhood Education. It's a voluntary organisation that was founded in Prague in 1948 by Lady Marjorie Allen of Hertford and Elva Murdle, and it was set up to support the refugee children after the war. Omep is the early childhood body with a seat at UNESCO, and being a Montessorian, this was very important to me when working on this award, because of course it was Montessori who was involved with UNESCO in the very early days in the talks and discussions about sustainability. Omep UK announced the launch of the first national early childhood education for sustainable citizenship award passport and accreditation scheme just 1 year ago. And it's been a pretty tough year, really, with the pandemic, because many of the settings have been closed. But we're delighted to currently report that we have 1,300 children engaging in the award, and that's across both bronze and silver levels. So what are the aims of the award? Well, it's to provide affordable support for settings in their development of early childhood education for sustainable citizenship, and to encourage parent partnerships. Now, in order to be sustainable, we've recognised the interdependence, we recognise the need to operate as a community, and we start with our immediate community and, of course, our parents. So it was really important to build this collaboration so that lifetime habits were supported not only in the setting, but also with parents, and parents were taking some enjoyment in researching and finding out about things such as what are the birds that visit our local gardens. So it's a great collaboration. And of course, from what we know about the EPI research, the effective preschool provision research that was carried out in the UK, following children from very young age right through to adulthood, we know that the home learning environment has the biggest impact on children's outcomes and sustainability. So this was very important for us. The core principles are empowerment and the citizenship rights of the child, supporting all aspects of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and contribution to the UNESCO Global Action Programme, known as GAP. The strategy is to provide a supportive infrastructure for trainers and consultants to disseminate the award. So trainers can come to us to enjoy some training and go out under licence with resources and support a setting to engage in the award. And once they've got a setting to bronze award, they become an accredited trainer. What's involved for the settings? Well, there are bronze, silver and gold levels, and at each award level, Hannah just touched on this, there is an audit. And it's good to be brutally honest when you're looking at this audit, because we are, as Montessorians, very good at embedding sustainability, but there are things that we can think about deeper and further and really work together as a team. And it is that team effort, and it's also part of great CPD. It's reminders of what we do and why we do them. So the audit tools are completed and a baseline is put together, and then a trainer helps the setting to think about how they can develop their plans. And that's a great way of really getting a lot out of the award. The collaboration with parents is the iCare booklets, 5 at each level. We haven't talked about the 3 pillars yet, but they are environmental, social, cultural and economic. And we also introduce iCare literacy and numeracy, because in order to be sustainable, we need to be able to be informed, we need to be able to find out about things, we also need to be able to take a democratic vote. The big document around this scheme is the child's passport. It's a brilliant passport, because what it does is it gives children access to venues which are going to broaden their horizons, bring new experiences to them. They can enter conservation parks, find out about ecology, visit an arboretum. It's a discounted entry to a wide range of organisations that children may not necessarily, or parents might not necessarily think to visit. So we have a nice list supporting the passport and introduction to different places. Children, when they work through their iCare booklets with their families, can also stamp in to say that this is what they've done. And the other important aspect of the passport is it also communicates the rights of the child to the families. And something that we know from the recent celebrations of the rights of the child, that it is the parents that actually don't know very much about this. So it's a great way of communicating that. We've looked at sustainable development today from many people and heard lots about it, but my favourite definitions are Brundtland's. He says it's the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So thinking about our finite resources, thinking about our consumption, and thinking about what impact is that going to have. And I also like Korzak's definition. ESD supports a counter-argument to the preparation school debate with the more optimistic possibility of preparation for life. And we've just heard how important it is to embed this into our curricula, and we need to do this more and more. We haven't got time to waste. It is important, and we can see that young children are the major stakeholders here. So what are these 3 pillars of sustainability then? I like to think of them as being like 3 legs of a 3-legged stool. One is economic sustainability, and that's not all about money, so we'll look at that in a moment. Environmental sustainability and social cultural sustainability. And if you've got a three-legged stool and one of those legs is wonky, got a crack in it, slightly unstable, and it breaks, then the stool falls over. And that's very much what will happen in our everyday lives if we're not considering these three pillars of sustainability. So let's have a look at them on a macro level. And I should mention that you'll sometimes hear of the fourth pillar of sustainability, which relates to policy and good governance. But for the award, we just focus on the three. But on a macro level, we've had decisions taken for many years now, such as the high-rise housing even in the 1960s. We were short of space for building and we needed to build cheaply. So that was the consideration at the time. And so what we need to think about is, are all these three pillars supported in this decision? If we think about something like the Millennium Dome, if you live in the UK and visited London, or even if you live in Europe and you visited London, you may have heard about our Millennium Dome. It was constructed before the millennium to support the year, to celebrate the year 2000. It cost £789 million to construct. In 2001, just a year after our celebration, it was sold for £1. Now, economically, 789 million is quite a lot of money. Environmentally, it wasn't in such a bad place to be, but social culturally, at the time when it was first developed, we couldn't get there. There were water taxes, but not very many. Now we've got water taxes running up and down till quite late in the evening. We've even got a chairlift so you can fly into this dome. We've also got a massive bus station there, underground train and overground. And if you've been to see Mr. Robbie Williams or Tina Turner in London, you may well have been to the O2 Arena and wouldn't have had any trouble these days getting there. But we can see how these three pillars interact in lives. At the moment in our country, we're looking at having something called the High-Speed 2 train. This is to connect the north to the south. We have a problem in the UK at the moment that the south of England, particularly around London, is overpopularised. We don't have enough housing. But in the north of the country, we've got lots of empty homes. So there's a consideration, how do we get people to move to the north of England? And would this train also improve economic businesses? But there is a lot of complaints. Obviously, the environmentalists are concerned about it. Economically, is it going to be worth it these days? We're all operating on Zoom. We could probably live in the north of England anyway. But we can see how these three pillars act all the time, integrate together. Now, when I was 4, I remember being very, very bored by my father taking me from shop to shop to shop looking at washing machines. As a 4-year-old, they all look the same. What he didn't do was give me any idea of why we were spending so long to look at a washing machine. But of course, on a micro basis, we use these three pillars all the time, or at least we need to if we want to make sustainable decisions. My father was checking whether we could have a washing machine that was environmentally friendly, economic to run, and would fit the needs of our family. And we're trying to make these decisions all the time at the moment. Many of us are thinking we might go to electric cars, and we might have to. But at the moment, it's quite a challenge. Some of them are very small. We wouldn't even get our dogs in the seat next to us. And also they're very expensive. But we want to be optimistic and we want to see a way forward. In our homes, we also are looking at being sustainable. But if we were to have an air source heat pump installed in our house at the moment, it would cost around £8,000. And of course, many people can't stretch to that. So a gas boiler is something that they do instead. But it is important that we're considering these three pillars all the time and making the best decisions that we can. The three pillars of sustainability also link to survival. The science of scarcity, economics, is the relationship between ends and scarce means, which have alternative uses. If we think about animals, every animal, including us, must also make decisions about rewards in our natural lives. They must take account for costs, the need to sustain energy resources, as well as potential payoffs in pursuing different courses of action. In fact, the need for sustainable economy is one shared by all living organisms and often considered the universal imperative or principle of least effort. So with the OMEP Award, we're introducing children at the bronze level to activities in the individual pillars. And as they work through the Bronze Award, we might actually be able to model using these 3 pillars in decision making. The award is also linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, which we've heard a little bit about today. And what we're doing through our award is actually doing exactly what Montessori advocated, following the child, the unique child, seeing what they can do and what they know about, and looking at how we can introduce ESC activities that build upon these important anchors so that it's meaningful. We're not wanting to support a tokenistic way of engaging in sustainable citizenship. Otherwise, it will be something we do this day and it's forgotten tomorrow or the week later. And this takes us to some interesting quotations. A sustainability citizen is someone who displays pro-sustainability behaviour. And that's all of us. We have to support a community of us all engaging in this pro-sustainability behaviour, modelling it, talking about the decisions we make every day, why we're buying something, what's happening when we're repairing something. And we have to bring those 3 pillars into our decision making so that children hear them. And John and I have said that sustainable citizenship is a lifelong emergent capability. We can't just assume we do it. We haven't got the access to do it well yet. We're still working on promoting a better environment, and there's a lot of work to do. But we want to be optimistic. Certainly for our children, we want to participate in the development of a better future, to have a great celebration, and for us to be proud of and to be taking agency in. So linking, I think, very much to Montessori, the ethos behind the award is education for sustainable citizenship presents humankind as a species, we're all nature, as being interdependent with the natural world, recognising that the plants and animals around us live in an ecological balance, and that we're also interdependent with each other as individuals, as groups, cultures, and as nations. In terms of early childhood development and learning, our understanding of interdependency begins with learning about ourselves. Montessori talked about this, about the different periods. So at 2, we're still learning about ourselves, our own needs, taking care of ourselves, which we see in the activities of everyday living and practical life area, and about how we respect and care for each other and the wider environment. So we can see these 3 pillars are connected, and therefore we really are trying to support children to learn how to engage and consider all 3 of them. It's going to be their life sustainable decisions that they take. So in economics, what does economics look like? Well, it's about being economic. So it's the science of scarcity. So we're looking at our consumption. How much paint are we using? Where do we get our water from to water the plants? What happens to the water after water play? We're talking about recycling, but recycling isn't enough. We need to be reusing it. We need to be seeing what happens to the recycling. Why are we doing it? This is what we need to understand and support. And repair. When you've got your equipment that breaks in the classroom, does it get whisked off to the office to be repaired? The important thing is for children to see what's happening, that they're involved in the repair or see somebody repairing it. And where possible, as we really advocate in Montessori, they repair things themselves. And at a government level, it's about redistribution. So let's have a look at what Unity Montessori engaged in the economics pillar.
Thank you, Lynette. As Lynette has explained, there are 3 pillars that this award focuses on, and we started with the economics area because of all the areas it was revealed by the self-audit tool that while we have a numeracy area, we did not always have numbers in a meaningful context that the children could understand. And it was this idea of growing the children's understanding that was really, really important to us. So we've heard today about making small changes, and I want to share some of the very small changes that we made in the setting. We added to the role play area, first of all, with receipt books, numerals, calculators, raffle tickets, and resources for pricing, along with some money. Play money was added as a posting activity for the very youngest children, and the older children used the money in their cafe, their shop, their garage, and their special money-making department. The prices were outrageous: £12 for toast, £20 for coffee, and £200 for petrol. But the beaming smiles from the children made up for these very overpriced goods. Parents provided new and exciting recycling, which the children sorted by type and made the most beautiful creations: cranes and rockets, castles and boats, all emerged from the recycling bins. And in describing their work, the children were so eloquent and enthusiastic. One child, and you can see the picture here of his crane emerging, said that cranes need stabilizers because the earth goes round the sun, and cranes need to stand up and be strong and not fall over. We also made new paper from old shredded paper, as Lynette said, this idea of reusing, and this enabled children to understand firsthand how materials can be used again and again and again. We developed very small projects using a water cycle. You can see I made the materials just there on the screen. And then we used a water gauge in the garden, and it prompted the children to measure water and use it to help water the plants and herbs that they'd grown. And this introduced the idea of reducing waste and redistributing resources. For the practitioners, engaging in the self-audit tool also enabled us to look with fresh eyes at how we can help children understand more about consumption, as well as an awareness of numbers and money too. We wanted the children to understand why they were being careful with water. And it is this why that is so important.
If we turn to the social cultural pillar now, social cultural pillar, how can we start that? Well, one really good way in to understanding that I have an ethnicity is through languages. I have a language that's different to other people's languages. So having this language, understanding linguistic difference and diversity. Now, in many settings, in a city such as Birmingham or London, we might have children that are from all different countries and cultures. But in other rural spots, the children might be monolingual. So it's even more important to bring a world of languages to them, so that they can experience and hear languages, get a positive aspiration towards it, but also it links to finding out about the children that live in those places. And that links to great work because we can look at the houses, how we live in houses, how other children live in houses that are different, but how clever the local people are at using things that they've got readily available to them, such as the children in Africa living in mud houses, or the children in the rainforest living in houses on stilts, which is so clever, so their homes don't get flooded. So we learn about different lifestyles and aspirations. And what through this award we try to do is also to build upon children's cultural capital. So raise aspirations, bring a world to them that they might not be aware of through role play, such as being a conservationist, a ranger, a marine biologist, and hearing about these jobs that I certainly didn't hear about as a young child. And yet we do the post office and the cafe and so forth. So really enriching and finding out about more. And of course, that links to global and multi-education, starting from the language perspective. So starting with our similarities and then respecting and appreciating the differences, that's key. So sustainable development requires an ethos of compassion, respect for difference, equality and fairness. So let's have a look at what they did at Unity.
Thank you, Lynette. Lynette's talked about compassion and fairness, and that's part of our ethos. And we looked again at the area of social and cultural change, and these ideals we felt were embedded into our ethos. And it was this idea of compassion and respect for difference that meant that we continued to celebrate really lovely festivals and have special meals together. But in terms of our understanding about different languages, that was one of the changes we introduced. We made a commitment to learning more words and songs in different languages. We learned Zoom, 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 we're going to the moon in a variety of languages. And the children were excellent teachers, but we knew we'd not always hit the right pronunciation when the children laughed out loud at our efforts or looked at us in absolute horror. We also added baskets to the environment with artefacts from different countries so that children could share news about the festivals that they like to celebrate in their families and with their friends. Celebrating the Bulgarian festival of Martinitsa and the start of spring last year felt really special, as this, I'm sure you remember, was at a time when the news of COVID had just started to spread. In our setting, like yours, we use books and props to talk about emotions, but we were really amazed at the complex ideas even the youngest children absorbed as they told us what things made them feel scared, angry, worried and happy, joyful and loved. The creativity that emerged from finding out about different emotions was truly beautiful. I don't know if you can see some of the faces that the children made on the screen there. It led to such moments of kindness and compassion too between the children. It really brings me such joy when I see such tiny little people helping each other, helping their younger friends. And as well as thinking about how we're similar, we also shared ways about how we're different. Thinking about aspirations and jobs, as Lynette said, helped us to listen to the children and find out much more about their interests. And here Lynette has some news on another child and ways that following a child can take us all on a journey that is both rich and exciting.
So we'd like to introduce you to Bella. Bella was a great pourer. She loved pouring water, pouring from jug to jug into equal containers. It was a fascination for her. She absolutely loved it, but she also loved grading the colour blue from the lightest to the darkest. But one of the things that she did do a lot of was dress up as a princess. Now, that's fine, but I don't know too many people that have managed to marry a prince, and I don't know that it's going to really help her that much in life to be aware of different jobs and about gender equality and being able to realise that girls can do jobs that maybe they're not aware of. So we introduced being a scientist to Bella through what she can already do, the pouring and the grading, by adding a little white coat because she loved to role play and dress up, but also by being able to say, have a look at these pictures. Look what scientists do. Just looking at men and ladies, different gender, different races, and her being aware of possibilities. She loved being a scientist, and she's actually now 8. And when we spoke to her mother just a few weeks ago to write up in a magazine about Bella's journey, we said, could you ask Bella, just ask her what would be her most favourite 3 jobs to do? And she came back and she said, a hairdresser, a scientist and a pharmacist. And she said, we only went to the hairdressers yesterday. And her mum now says that she wants a science kit every Christmas. So turning to the environmental pillar now, this is all about the need to protect the resources, the airs, the seas and the land. And I've just put in a quote from a paper that John and I did on the legacy of Maria Montessori a few years ago now, but it's valid to talk about this. The awe and wonder that many environmental educators seek to instill in children to achieve deep learning should be recognised as contagious. We catch it, we don't learn it, rather than simply the inevitable result of frequent contact with nature. Such an experience may be spontaneous, but it might more often be socially constructed. Free play in the natural world isn't sufficient in itself to ensure an adequate education of sustainable development. And free play must be seeded by stimulating and challenging, and not just sentimental, social and physical environment. And this is something that Montessori understood very well. It wasn't enough just to be out there. She produced some great activities to support children's understanding, develop their further knowledge about what they could do and why they were doing it. And this is what this project is all about. It's about dovetailing into that so children really understand why are they doing something. But most importantly, we've got to be contagious. Now, if we're not contagious as adults, we need to find adults that are, because this has to be modelled. If you think about anything we love to do, we do it because it's fun and it's enjoyable and we want to do it. Sustainability is so important. We need children to feel inspired and see why they want to do it. What makes the difference between a child picking up a piece of litter on the beach and another not? We've got to have that contagion, that reason for really wanting to do it. So we bring in people, experts, RSPB people, National Trust people. We need to really support that. So what did Unity do?
Thanks, Lynette. Lynette and John talked about opportunities for contagion in nature. And I would say, even in the smallest and most urban environments, we can still support children to share in understanding more about improving our air quality, protecting our oceans, and saving our land. So, we are a pack-away nursery. That means all of our equipment gets tidied away into a small cupboard every day. We operate out of a scout hut with a heavily tarmacked area for outdoor space. The space is used by the scouts in the evening, so a school pet is completely out of the question. Instead, we made bird feeders and grew butterflies. We looked after the bugs and spiders and counted them. We started projects about animals that were endangered, and children made habitats. We grew plants and vegetables in planters and tried to stop the squirrels from eating everything. We're currently growing herbs and cress. The children themselves became expert composters, and we were able to take them for walks to the local park for forest school outings, and all of these experiences gave the children an insight into new ways of looking after their environment. This was best demonstrated when 2 children noticed after heavy rain that some of our new plants had kind of bent over and were on the ground. A special task force was created, led by 2 children. They marched around the garden and they recruited even more children. And they said, "We've got sticks and twine and we are the special plant savers." They diligently supported all of the plants to be upright again. Having a team of special plant savers seemed to me to be sustainable citizenship in action. And these children, they really wanted to make a difference. They were enthusiastic, and their enthusiasm was certainly contagious.
And we had some surprises, as did Hannah. We spoke to the local primary school and they told us that the children that had been involved in that project at the primary school, now one takes care of a nature area that they've developed and looks after the water animals and clears out the water and makes sure it's all right and invites children in every day to do investigations. Another runs the recycling centre, and another one is in charge of the community garden plot, where the parents also come to seed and plant so that they harvest all together and they can take foods home. Hannah, what were your surprises?
Thanks, Lynette. So Lynette and John were surprised by the enthusiasm for such projects all around the world, and I think participating in the award surprised us as well. As teachers, I think we became a bit braver. Forest School became a much-loved moment in the week, and during a break on lockdown restrictions, we were even able to take the children on the tube to visit a farm, which was a very exciting trip, as I'm sure you can imagine, manhandling lots of 2- and 3-year-olds on the underground. After adding books to the book corner about different communities from around the world, you can see in the bottom left corner there, children started to find out more about building, and they started to build houses using nursery resources that were really ambitious and wide-ranging. And we expected the Bug Hotel to be interesting for the children too, but it was all the side ventures that we didn't expect. The children took such care to write and record all that they saw and found, and we noticed incredible moments of collaboration as children embarked on their own projects to care for the environment. One particular highlight for me was the worm rescue, where children worked together to return some worms to their natural habitat away from the tarmac and scooters. As a nursery, we also engaged in some exciting projects. We grew lettuces and sold them to the parents. With the proceeds, we were able to visit a local bookshop, and we bought 2 books about looking after the planet. These projects seem to encompass all aspects of the award. Children grew plants, found out about money, and then listened to each other and voted on which books to buy. As a result of the bookshop visit, the children also asked how they could get even more books into the school, so we started our own library. Parents and children brought in books to make a library, and children discovered ways to share resources and take really extra care of special books that belong to somebody else. Sadly, with COVID, our libraries had to close, but we're really hopeful that we're going to open it again later in the year. We were really, really happy to have participated in this award. As teachers, I think we've grown and become more ambitious about helping the children to understand more about consumption and ways to reuse resources, and also the importance of building community. We noticed that parents became more involved. They were not only happy to get rid of all of their recycling, but also they donated large kitchen counters that we could use as tables where lots of children can work together. And the children, they continue to celebrate their similarities and differences, and they share in looking after their environment in a collaborative way, which is so exciting. The changes that we made in the setting might seem really small. Maybe you do some of them already. I would say, though, that undertaking the award helped us as practitioners to grow our community in a new way, because it enabled the children to understand why. Separating types of recycling can simply be a sorting activity, but a child that understands why they are recycling makes it a much more powerful experience. If a child understands why they are recycling, it can be a way for a child to feel strong, capable and curious, with the capability of making choices for themselves. Giving the children agency and the knowledge of ways that they can make a difference was really wonderful. So if we can help the children to respect each other and build and care for their world, then we really do have hope for the future. Not only are these children creative and resourceful, they are kind and thoughtful, and they are dancing, singing, joyful worm rescuers and plant savers, which to me means the planet is in good hands.
Thank you ever so much for inviting us to share our exciting project.
Thank you very much. It's so lovely to see so many faces on the screen. Thank you.